it was kind of like the weird contradiction at the heart of The Last of Us Part 2, which I played this year. Great game, really impressive, you know, but at the same time, it's, a big bloated mess, which was made under duress by the people at Naughty Dog, because working for Naughty Dog is apparently terrible. Because they really, do you know what crunch is, like crunch culture?
Yeah, where they make you work like 100-hour weeks in order to get games sort of done and stuff.
Yeah. So like, Naughty Dog's one of those companies which really promotes crunch. Apparently, the crunch on Uncharted 4 was so terrible that the majority of the staff quit Naughty Dog. Like in protest. So like, you've got this weird contradiction where, like, The Last of Us Part 2 is like a phenomenal technical accomplishment, like on every level. It's some of the best motion capture I've ever seen. It's one of the best, like, if I have to say one of the most realistic looking games I've ever played, The Last of Us Part 2 is probably that. But then you have to accept that it was made under mental duress and abuse. And like, it's not cool, like, at all. So as I was kind of saying in the chat earlier, it's why I tend to kind of, stay away from quite a lot of AAA stuff, because I just disagree with the business ethics.
Yeah, and they make enough money. They could hire to have more people working on them as well, or just release a product slightly less polished.
I don't know about like releasing a product that's slightly less polished, though.
Yeah, it's like, the alternative.
We are currently looking at a less polished game.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, not necessarily polished. Maybe like the thing I said about the horse bollocks was a reference to in Red Dead Redemption 2. I don't know if you know this, Heath, but when you go into a colder environment, the horse that you ride on's bollocks are tracked back into its self to realistically display, make it seem like what it would actually be like. I don't think that's necessary at any stage. But I think if they just did like less stuff like that, they might be able to do it. Not necessarily making a game look like a pile of crap like this or something.
Yeah. I think I think as well, like, when you sort of also talk about, like,
what the hell is that thing? Why has it got pants exactly like the Hulk?
It's almost like he's a reskinned Hulk.
They just,
Like, is that an actual thing in comics or films or whatever, that Abomination has pants that are exactly like the Hulk?
Easier to make action figures that way, I guess.
They just clicked on scale layer for this guy and just made him slightly bigger.
There you go. That's a boss fight done. Next.
No, what I was going to say though is in regards to like what you were getting at in with not like buying the games and that sort of thing, and this idea of like activism through consumption. So basically saying, you won't buy something because of like particular work practices and that, and I don't necessarily agree with it, because I don't think it'll make like a terrible lot of difference to these companies.
No, like, I don't make any like pretense that like it is going to make a difference. I just personally disagree with like the ethics involved. Like, I'm not one of those who, like, because there are like whole movements of like, let's boycott The Last of Us, like, and I'm not. It's kind of separate for me. It's just kind of like, well, this is part of a thing which I'm not really, big into, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I think consumer boycotts can work if they're organised and lots of people do it. I think it doesn't work if you just say, I'm not buying this, but if you organise with different people, that can work, and has worked several times in the past and stuff. Like, there's been companies that have been forced to change labour practices, just like lots of people say, I'm not going to shop here and stuff before. So I think that would work.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think individually just saying, I'm not going to buy it doesn't do anything.
Yeah. Well, no, that's sort of what I was going to get at. That sort of like you. Well, I think the supporting sort of group action, even like with the workers and that sort of thing as well, like that are actually impacted by this. I was also going to like sort of point out that like I'm sure like well I know for example that you have like sort of well all of us have like smartphones and they're not made under the
Oh
best
yeah, for
like
sure. Yeah.
circumstances. They also require cobalt, which is like the conditions in those mines are like terrible and stuff, and
Yeah.
it's used to sort of exploit countries and that. Like this is what I'm getting at. Like I think that if you sort of go down the rabbit hole of like if what are the ethics behind what's being made and that like nearly everything is terrible.
Yeah, I think the wisest words I've heard on it is like there's no such thing as fair consumption under capitalism or
There's
something to that
No
effect.
ethical consumption and capitalism.
yeah
Ethical consumption of capitalism. That's it. Yeah, yeah. Which it's a tricky one because like because you can't, right, like it is almost impossible. But I think you can be selective. Like one thing I'm trying at the moment is like I'm trying to like reduce my like meat intake. Like I'm trying to eat as much vegetable stuff as possible because stuck at studies and that sort of stuff. Like meat consumption and the way the meat is produced is bad for the environment. And even like for me doing like just a little bit, like just for me, just to feel like I'm at least I don't know at least trying something. Um, I, it's a difficult one because there is ultimately no getting away from the fact that I'm watching Marcus play this game on a MacBook, and God knows what's gone into making this.
yeah
But then at the same time, I don't want to buy certain products by video game developers because I personally disagree with their business practices. So I get the contradiction and probably the hypocrisy of what I'm saying. But yeah,
I
it's
don't think it's hypocritical. I think it would be.
no well yeah what I was going to say is that like I think the thing is and where the issue comes is that if that is the only thing you're doing, that's that's bullshit basically. Like so
I
if
see
the
what you're
only
saying,
thing
yeah.
you're doing is like reducing your consumption of certain products and that's what helps you sleep at night, well that's not really doing anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're actually, doing other things, whether that's, even something like, sort of voting for particular candidates, and which is like again is the next like level up of something that you can actually do. And then you've got like actually advocacy for causes and contributing to causes that sort of help in these situations. Like, there's other stuff you can do. But if you just say, "Yeah, I've decided," it's sort of like the vegan thing, like
Yeah.
like a lot of vegans are just like, "Yeah, I don't eat meat, so I'm absolved of all my sins," essentially.
Yeah, which really bothers me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's sort of what I'm getting at is that it's not
Okay, yeah.
necessarily that you shouldn't just like not do the best you can to reduce your carbon footprint or make ethical choices in what you buy or as ethical as possible, but like that shouldn't be the end of what you do. You should actually be doing other things.
Yeah, no, that's a completely fair point. Yeah, no, the vegan one is a really good point to raise because I've always I kind of think similar things to your point, like I always have done because I'm kind of like I don't know, I've got questions, right? Like I'd love to sit down because like I only know of vegan people by proxy. They're friends of somebody else, or they're like a person's family member. I've never really had a proper like sit down conversation with a vegan. Like one which really puts like the activism front at the forefront. For example, my posit is something like this, right? So like my fiance's mum, she lives in the country, right? She has like hens. Like the hens are really well looked after. they're basically pets, right? They run around the garden all the time, they sleep at night, they're fed amazingly, they have a great life, right? Well looked after. And the byproduct of that is they produce eggs every day. So I don't understand how that could be argued as by consuming the eggs, which are basically unfertilized periods, which is what eggs are. I don't see how that could be argued as being like unethical, because it's responsible consumption. It's not going via like a supermarket, right? And it's fresh produce of an animal which has been well looked after. So I'd struggle to understand why that's bad. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, I like the thing is that yeah, again, I don't think in that circumstance, and I would probably like I would say that it's like a sort of very small proportion of vegans that like in that circumstance would say that that's unethical to eat those eggs. Like I would hope, I should say, rather than I think. I would hope that a small proportion. Like the thing is that I think that there's definitely ways that even meat we can produce meat in a more sort of ethical, sustainable way, but we don't. It's um, it because of things like profit motive and that sort of thing. So we've got we produce the meat as sort of cheaply as possible, and this is what leads to, and it's the same with eggs. This is what leads to, um, all of these sort of really shitty like circumstances, like the fact that with eggs you have like cage farming and stuff like that. The point of that is to sort of put as many chickens laying eggs as possible into a single space, reducing the amount of space or increasing the number of chickens that you can have in a single space, producing eggs, and that's why you end up with like chickens in like cages that they can barely move in, that they get their beaks filed off and stuff like that, so that they don't peck the other chickens or their eggs, and because they're they're psychologically damaged and stuff like that. So I think like and it's the same with like meat production. There are definitely ways that it can be done to reduce the cruelty to animals, and can be done in like sustainable ways. There's a book, and I can't remember the name of it, but I read it at my brother's place because my brother does this. He grows cattle on his farm, but basically using the sort of natural pastures and stuff like that, and like cycling through different pastures and stuff like that to grow cattle. Like you grow, like it's not as efficient as the normal means of growing cattle, but it's better for the environment and stuff like that, and it's better for the cattle. So there's like definitely ways of doing it, but the problem under capitalism with doing that sort of thing is it makes less money.
Well, yeah, and obviously, we're at a point where, like, it's about not just a bit of the money, but all the money, right? If they can push it as far as they can, but that's what we want. We're seeing this in action with Marvel's The Avengers, right? Where like instead of making a whole complete game, it's being split up and sold in separate parts, and like you've got to buy this, you've got to buy that, and you'll buy the base game, but then you've got to buy this and buy that, and it's the problem where instead of having like a bit of the money, they want all the money, right? So yeah, no, that's the thing, like at the end of the day, I find it with most things where like what the I think what the issue ultimately stems from is the inherent issues of capitalism, and that's kind of what it all I think eventually spirals around. Yeah, because like as you said, I think any vegan would have a hard time arguing with the point that I made, but we could both agree that the way that food and produce and just things in general are produced under capitalism is, for the most part, morally wrong.
Yeah, like you can talk about like uh being a vegan and only eating vegetables and stuff like that. But then you can go down the path of saying, well, a lot of that food is picked and farmed and that sort of thing, on the backs of like underpaid immigrant labor, and so is the person that's being sort of exploited, and underpaid and that sort of thing, are they like, they get to keep their life in the exchange? I suppose the chicken does to a point, when it's laying eggs, but the like, are their lives sort of also any less important? Is their exploitation just a necessary evil? Because that's basically what it comes down to with like the consumption of like meat and eggs and all that sort of thing. It is kind of like it is a necessary evil, if you will. But like, do we as should we be just like pushing that like, not so much the lifestyle but the actual like production of things, like how things are produced, that should be changing, not necessarily people's lifestyles? And
So I'm just looking at this awkward banter between these two.
Sorry, I was transfixed by the game momentarily for some reason. Just after you finished, Chief. I think they're all really, completely fair points. And as you say, like it's asking the difficult questions, which I don't think a lot of people would want to, like saying I'm gonna not buy this, as you say, it's a short-term answer to a much more complex question, which time and time again we've seen that people don't want to engage with very complicated answers to very complicated questions. I think people want that short, I'm this, so it gets me out of jail, basically. It's a get out of jail free card.
yeah, basically my point is that being a vegan is not a get out of jail free card, and being a quote unquote ethical consumer is not a get out of jail free card.
Yeah.
But like, as we've established, there is no ethical consumption under capitalism. Anyway,
That should just be the tagline of everything that we do.
well, yeah, it should it should be the tagline of like everything, like
Everything, right?
everything. Just get your receipts from like Sainsbury's or wherever, Asda, and after everything it just says no, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism. Just
like you've just bought your groceries and you're paying for your food at like the till for whatever reason, and like you get your receipt from the cashier and you're like, you throw it back in their face of like, well, there's no ethical consumption of the capitalism, but just leave.
Yeah, I think as well, like, it's the way like society is set up as well, like really makes it difficult for a lot of people, in regards to like actually doing something about it. So
Yeah.
I think people do often slip into these slip into this sort of thing, because like they work all day, they work their 8 hour day, they may have like an hour or 2 hour commute to and from work, and like by the time they get home, all they want to do is just like chill the fuck out. They don't want to worry about this sort of stuff, and so it's seemingly much easier just to sort of go, well, if I just make the right choices when I buy things, that should be enough. The unfortunate reality is that it's not enough.